This video is a remake of my previous series on what if Marvel never sold their movie rights. I won't be changing that much from that version, but I will be going a lot more in detail on them. I am aware that realistically, in this scenario, there's a chance that the MCU just wouldn't have happened, or if it did, it would have just been completely different. But I have nothing to really base what the universe would look like on. So instead, I'll just be assuming this universe remains relatively close to the actual MCU, as well as taking inspiration from the other non-MCU Marvel movies. In addition to story and casting elements, I will be assuming this universe begins in 2008 like the actual MCU, and will still focus on Thanos as the first overarching villain. With that in mind, let's begin with Phase 1. The first movie of this universe would be The Amazing Spider-Man. You could maybe argue that they would have started with the X-Men, since that movie came out first in real life, but I didn't want to start this universe with a team, and Spider-Man is their most popular character, so starting with him just makes sense. The movie would be basically the same as the actual first Spider-Man movie, except starring Andrew Garfield, since Tobey Maguire would be too old and Tom Holland would be too young, and he has proven he can be good in the role. In addition to Andrew Garfield, the movie would mostly use the castings of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, including Emma Stone as Mary Jane Watson instead of Gwen Stacy, with the exception of Green Goblin, who will still be played by Willem Dafoe. Later in 2008, Marvel would get around to X-Men, a movie that would be the same as the 2000 movie, with mostly the same cast, so a few of the characters would have to be a bit older, except Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver appear as Magneto's children and members of the Brotherhood. This differs from the actual MCU, which didn't introduce another team until after the Avengers, but the X-Men are just too big to ignore, and also will tie into the Avengers. However, this first phase is focused on building the Avengers, so the Fantastic Four will not get a movie until Phase 2. The one movie releasing in 2009 would be The Incredible Hulk. I could have gone with Iron Man first, since he got a movie before the Hulk in the actual MCU, but those movies were only a month apart anyways, and the Hulk was much more popular at the time. This movie would be similar to the actual movie, except with more origin story, since the 2003 Hulk movie would not exist in this timeline, and also Tony Stark's cameo is replaced by the first appearance of Nick Fury, which in this timeline would be our first hint at the Avengers. The following year, though, they would get around to Iron Man, as I feel like he is a character they would still want to use in Phase 1, and also he is a core Avenger. The movie would be identical to the actual movie, except with the deleted post-credit scene where Nick Fury mentions gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants, confirming a connection between all of these movies. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 would be the same story as the real-life Spider-Man 2, except here Vulture and Electro appear as side villains who Spider-Man fights, and also J. Jonah Jameson references some of the other heroes. The movie ends with Peter graduating high school, and the post-credits scene shows Spider-Man being recruited into the Avengers. Also, Dr. Octopus does not die. Starting off 2011, X-Men United would be the same as the actual X2, except Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver appear again, and by the end, they leave the Brotherhood. Then after that would be Captain America, the First Avenger, which again remains the exact same, except Wolverine appears in a small role. Like in the actual MCU, the big conclusion of Phase 1 is the Avengers, which would be very similar to, but very different from the actual movie. The team consists of Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Hulk, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, who are all recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D. to deal with the return of the Red Skull. Since Thor didn't happen in this universe, Loki couldn't be the main villain, and Red Skull was originally the villain in earlier versions of the script. After being taken away by the Tesseract in the first Avenger, it's revealed that Red Skull was taken forward in time into space where he met Thanos, who, like in the actual MCU, is hinted at and revealed in the post-credits scene. Thanos and Red Skull reluctantly came to an agreement where Red Skull would help Thanos get him Infinity Stones in exchange for his Chitauri army. Red Skull would also have the Mind Stone, which he would use to mind control Scarlet Witch against the Avengers. By the end, though, the Avengers defeat Red Skull and he dies. The epilogue to Phase 1 is The Amazing Spider-Man 3. In this universe, would still introduce the symbiote, however, we wouldn't get Venom quite yet. Instead, Kraven the Hunter would be the main villain in an adaptation of Kraven's Last Hunt. Like in the original story, Kraven buries Spider-Man alive, and he is saved by the symbiote, attaching to him and helping him escape. But also, in this movie, Kirk Connors transforms himself into the Lizard, which also draws the attention of Kraven. The fight between Kraven and the Lizard is broken up by Spider-Man, who manages to cure the Lizard, leaving the final battle between Spider-Man and Kraven. Spider-Man defeats Kraven, but also goes a bit too far, nearly beating him to death and causing MJ to break up with him.